Go ahead. Pop. Hi, I'm McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we have another dandy of a live stream, one that I think is going to be informative, something a little different. I talk about books sometimes, but I don't know if I've talked about them in one live stream in a long time. People ask me my opinion, and I titled it Top Books for 2020. But let me just tell you something real quick. These aren't books from 2020. I'm just giving you Coach Max. I hate to speak in third person. But I'm just giving you my top books in 2020. I was going to write top 20 books for a breakup, but I would say that these are top 20 books or top books in 2020 for self-improvement in my eyes, in my opinion. So there's so many self-improvement books. There's not a lot of good breakup books, but that's why I want to work on one myself that are specifically for breakups. I've heard people tell me about a couple, but I'm a big proponent of, self-improvement and finding something that helps you in a tough time. And these are some books. I'm literally going to go through my Audible, which is on my phone, and look at the books that I've gone through. But for starters, the two most recent books that I've gone on and on about that I thought were really good books, and I guess you could say self-improvement. But what I really like is if there's a self-improvement book with a really good story or research. So, it's packed with research that's not just scientific, but it's true. So it's not someone just going, oh, this, and this. Like, I think that's what's really tough about the law of attraction is that there's some truth to the law of attraction. But I think some of the stories and how easy it is, someone just wished for something and they got $10 million in a day or something. I think that there would be probably a lot more people that say they tried and they're not using, and someone that's really big on the law of attraction might go, oh, you're not using the correct method. I think that there is truth to visualization, belief, and there's a book, I'm going somewhere with this, that he doesn't call it law of attraction, but he calls it Real Magic by Dean Radin. So Real Magic, and Dean Radin. Dean Radin's one of these people that he researched. He actually has grants from very rich people, including who's the co-founder of Microsoft besides Bill Gates? Would you guys know that? Yeah, he had a partner.
Oh,
I can't think of his name. Anyhow, this guy was one of the guys that granted him a lot of money to research psychic phenomenon, and these kinds of things. And one of the best chapters to this Audible book, Real Magic by Dean. And then after about the 40th, there it goes right there. Chapter 6, Practice of Magic. Chapter 5. Practice of Magic. So what he says is basically it involves belief, imagination, emotion. And these are the things, basically what he sounds like he's telling you to do is if you want to follow the law of attraction and knowing what you want, having a clear picture of what you want would be belief, imagination, and emotion. But he gives hard evidence or proof or stories of him using it and it working. And they have tests and different things like that. So if you're into the law of attraction and you want to take a different angle from it, from a scientific guy that isn't just going, just wish or hope for something, Real Magic by Dean Radin was an interesting book. He has multiple books. One of the chapters in this book that surprised me, you guys will think this is funny, Aleph and Danny. I guess there was a saint at one point. You know what a saint is? Yeah. Okay. You know what a saint is, Aleph?
Scientist.
Saint.
Scientist.
Saint.
Saint, yeah.
Yeah, for the church. Like someone that was here I am like, do you know what it is? I don't know how to describe it.
Saint, saint.
Okay, so saints. And there was a guy, I think they said the 14th or 13th century. I'm not sure. I should have notes on this. But he was able to fly. Danny just was like, what? Yeah. Levitate. Have you heard of levitate before? Levitate means like you can come off the ground. And they've claimed that some monks can meditate and levitate. And I'm like, you got to have footage on that. Right? You can't say that, dude. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, levitate? And you've seen pictures of like monks levitate, but like it might be
But they can levitate by meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a saint.
Yeah, so this guy was saying that during this time that this guy was able to levitate. And I was like, that's one of those ones where I'm like, wait a minute. But the idea of using emotion, clarity, belief to maybe get what you want in the future. And he points to the same thing everyone else does, believe that it already happened. But he says it's more possible through meditation. But if you want to get a little deeper on a different angle of what's similar to law of attraction, he never really uses the term law of attraction. He talks about real magic. I think it's a really interesting book. And it's something that, like I said, this guy does a lot of research. So when he speaks and he talks about some of the experiments he's done, it's really interesting. So one of the experiments he did was, or one of the situations where he says real magic happened was he got a office space in a certain area of California. What's up, Jesse? In a certain area of California where there was maybe 4 other office spaces. You with me? So he says next door to him after a month of being in there, he's practicing psychic phenomenon and these kind of like very specialized work that not many people do, right? This area where his office was, there's dentists, there's doctors, there's maybe a lawyer, that kind of stuff. So one day he comes out of his office and he sees a sign, and the sign says psychic something, something, something. So he goes next door and he goes to the guy, he goes, hey, I'm your neighbor, I'm Dean Radin. And the guy goes, what? Like the guy's in shock. And he's like, I'm Dean Radin. He goes, I know who you are. And Dean Radin's like, who am I? And he goes, I've been manifesting you for 2 months to work with me on my project. And Dean Radin's like, what? And the guy's like, they're in the same field, they study the same thing, and Dean Radin is like the king of this dynamic. And so they meet up and the guy goes, I've been working on a special way of manifesting you for the last 2 months. And then Dean Radin, it was just the way the story plays out, you're like, wow, it doesn't sound like a coincidence or bullshit. So anyways, check out Real Magic by Dean Radin. An interesting read. The next book I would pick that I really liked was a short book, a very short read. I've talked about it before. Tribe by Sebastian Junger with a J. And Sebastian Junger actually wrote the book White Squall. I don't know if you ever heard of that book. Very famous book that was made into a movie. Fictional story. Tribe, I wrote Sebastiatina. Tribe is a book about how people interact. He's actually a war journalist, I believe, or photojournalist. So he was in Sarajevo in Serbia and stuff during the war. And he talks about how war brings people together. He talks about Indian tribes being some of the best ways of life of all time because they lived in these communities that all had the same beliefs, all had each other's backs, had a lot of free time to play. There was no money involved. Think about that for a minute. We don't. Have you ever thought about that? Like, what if there was no money involved in the world, and everyone just had to
Communication, like
hunt?
exchange. Yeah.
Like, if you look at Indians and the American Indians, Native Americans, excuse me. I mean, they went hunting, fishing. They probably had some crops, but they all had the same beliefs, and then they all had each other's backs. And he was saying that the number one thing in these Native American groups, even though they had different tribes and different costumes and different
culture of tribe.
yeah, right, was that if you disrespect, if you were greedy, because everyone's this is the thing, everyone was the same. There was no rich people. Someone could be a better hunter, but if he was able to kill 3 deer, he's still going to share it with
his tribe.
He wouldn't go, got 3 deer, what will you give me for it? Right? This is what we have in society now. It's pretty interesting. So one of the big parts he talked about was that when white settlers were kidnapped in wars with Native Americans, they didn't want to go back to white society. And there's evidence of this over and over again. But when Indians were kidnapped by white settlers, and when I say kidnapped, it wasn't like they were put in jail or they were abused. They would assimilate, which means they would put them into the families and friends and make them part of the settlers' culture or part of the Indian culture. They wouldn't abuse them, but maybe they did sometimes. I'm not sure. But that's not what the book's about. So the Indians would always want to go back to the tribe. They wouldn't want to So his point was, this might have been some of the best living for human beings. Yeah, they didn't have computers, they didn't have heaters, they didn't have any of this, but the tribe was, we look at, like, if we can have our family close, that's pretty good these days. Like, you imagine having, I don't know, 200, 300, 1,000 people, and we all speak the same language, live in the same place. I'm sure they don't always get along. I'm not saying that. I'm sure there was fights, right? I'm sure there was some guys cheating sometimes. I'm sure there was breakups. But at the end of the day, the white settlers said that they liked to stay with the Indians because they said there was no hierarchy. Like, you were the same in the group. Now, they would have a chief, but that chief preached, like I said, if you weren't greedy, and the other thing, you had to have courage and bravery if we were going to fight another tribe. In other words, there's such thing as war. That was the other thing. So, and they would, if you didn't like the tribe, you could leave. They wouldn't kill you or put you in jail or say you broke the law. You could leave. So those were pretty interesting things. And that book, Tribe, by Sebastian Junger, that's just one chapter that I found really interesting. And I find that, reading books now, especially self-improvement, and I would say Tribe is not self-improvement. It's almost research-based. It's okay if you just like a chapter or two. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to write. You don't have to love the whole book. But I liked that book, and it was a short read, and I talk about it a lot. So that would be one book, my top books of 2020. Breath, not Breathe. Breath by James Nestor is something I've talked about in the last few days a lot because I just read it. And it's just about breathing. And what's interesting about it, you think, this is pretty fucking boring. We all breathe. We know how to breathe. What do I need to know about it? But he researches the hell out of it. He finds maybe 5 or 6 different methods of breathing that helps you with anxiety, that can erase asthma. It helps you with worry. And he does it all himself. So he finds out about these things, and then he's the experiment. So one of the things that he did was, this is crazy, Danny. It's called, I'm going to get it wrong, holistic breathing. I got it wrong. It's some other thing. You got to check out the book. But the example of what they did was they go in a room for 3 hours and breathe as deep as you can, for 3 hours. I don't even know if I could do that for 3 hours. I'm sorry for spitting. But, right? And they play music as loud as possible. And they say they have psychedelic situations where they see stuff because you're losing air. It's not natural to breathe that way. That's the only reason you'd breathe that way is if you're running from a tiger or something, like that you're that scared. Or you're training for something, but to do it 3 hours straight. So this was something he tried himself. And then there were simple things like just breathing through your nose. So breathing through your nose over breathing through your mouth is basically 10 times better. And I didn't know it was that big a deal. And I'm a mouth breather. And so he breaks that down. That's a big reason why a lot of people have asthma or respiratory problems or get headaches, and how much of a benefit it is to breathe through your nose. It's amazing. So what he did was they did an experiment. This is crazy. They did an experiment, him and another guy that are into breathing. They plugged up their nose surgically. They fucking sewed the nose closed so they couldn't breathe through their nose. I wouldn't do it. I mean, that's a lot to do to write a book, right? And then they did it for like 3 weeks to see the effects on your body and how you felt not being able to breathe through your nose. It was incredible. It was bad. His breathing was bad. He had headaches, all these different things. And so one of the things they recommend that I started doing recently is that if you're a mouth breather at night, and you'll know you're a mouth breather at night if you snore, which is common. He says like 50 to 60% of people are mouth breathers. If you snore, if you wake up in the morning with dry mouth, which I do sometimes, like your mouth's dry, that could also mean that you've been drinking and you didn't drink enough water. Dry mouth means you're sometimes that you didn't drink enough water. But for mouth breathing, or if you're getting headaches and whatnot. So anyways, he says to put like surgical tape, put it over your mouth when you sleep. I've done it recently because you can still breathe out of your nose. So it forces you to breathe out of your nose. Now, I don't know if I've been like, oh man, I feel so much better. But I don't know if I'm putting on the tape strong enough. But by the time I wake up in the morning, at some point I took the tape off. I don't know. So I haven't been keeping it on. But Breath by James Nestor, outstanding book on breathing and the benefits of breathing for your health and your mental. And the fact that you can be and one of the biggest ones he talks about, and it's simple stuff that you can apply. It's not like, oh my God, I could never do that. I don't understand. One of them is, I think it's kind of like box breathing. It's basically like go 5.5 seconds and then 5.5 seconds out, and just continue to do that over and over again in a rhythm. And that's supposed to be a sweet spot for all human beings to calm down. If you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you could do this like 10 times a day, it's like wake up meditation. So really, really informative, useful stuff that makes sense. Because he's like, the really interesting thing, he's like, you don't realize how much you breathe in the day, right? And you don't realize that's the one thing you actually do need. I didn't even think about that. You need water, but you need water, I don't know, 3 times a day. You can go out without water for 2 days, I think, right? Something like that. You can't with breathing. And he has this really interesting part of the chapter where, I talked about this before, but someone that had the ability to not feel, if they had to hold their breath, they'll feel it. There's one thing all human beings are scared of, is not being able to breathe, because that's when you die. Right? So I would highly recommend that book, Breath by James Nestor. And then the next book, which I've talked about, again, glowingly, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which is a book that was recommended to me many times, but I kept putting it off. First of all, it's more like a biography It's about this guy. So I don't know if it's just self-improvement, but his story's so incredible that if you don't get inspired to be not just better, but fucking challenge yourself. That's what stood out to me. I was like, this guy, something happened to him where he was just like, stop complaining, stop making excuses. He was like 17 years old. He got in the mirror, shaved his head, and he was just like, I'm going to stop making excuses. And he got, I have them right here, like Post-it notes.
Discord.
No, that's what the Post-it note says. But he got Post-it notes, and this is a note for, the Discord. But the Post-it notes, he put them on his bathroom mirror, and he's like, I just started writing all the things that and his approach is interesting. He's like, no, you're a lazy ass motherfucker. Like, you're a piece, like, he talked down to himself.
To motivate himself?
Yes. So he said, like, instead of, oh, you can do better, or
You're doing good today.
yeah, like being positive, he was like, no, I was dead honest with myself. He's like, I wasn't getting good grades in school. He's like, you're stupid. I was like, we wouldn't do that usually now, but he said it motivated him, and then he put up all these Post-it notes on his mirror and went through them. And then he went into the military, came out 2 years later, and he became a bug sprayer for bugs for 2 years, became really fat and overweight, and then gets into the Navy SEALs. The story's so much better. I couldn't even tell the story. Lots of swearing, which I like. Lots of F-bombs and things like that. But you could tell he's being who he is. But this guy, like, the challenges, it's just amazing how far he pushed himself in 100-mile races. It's just amazing because he pushes himself so hard to just complete things that you got to ask yourself, how much of our mind is controlled? He went on 100-mile, it's like a race or marathon with no training, no special diet or anything, and finished the thing. 100 miles, I'm not lying, in 24 hours. Okay? And the guy was jacked. He was big. He said so when you say that, Danny, it's like, is that possible? Because I would think the same thing. Like, is that even possible?
Yeah.
Right? I'm with you. Let alone someone that doesn't train for it.
Mm-hmm.
He was in good shape. He was in good shape because he had lifted weights and stuff. He wasn't just like, off the street slump. You know what? He broke bones in his foot and kept running. He shit himself while running.
What the fuck?
Yes. That's why I'm saying to read the book, because you're just like, what? He crapped himself twice. He peed him. Like, it's just amazing. And he says the mind can keep you going farther than you can ever think. And his mind was just like, he was doing it because it was like a charitable thing. Like, if he ran this race, he was going to raise money for fallen soldiers. So he had a purpose that was important to him. But he also he has this incredible mindset. If he challenges himself, he's not going to give up. Dude, I don't know if I could ever run 100 miles like that. But I mean, he had damage in his foot from it, which I don't suggest to anyone. But it's still pretty impressive that there's a human being with will like that like no training, no nothing. Just incredible stories where you're just like, and then I found myself after I read the book, like, I'm in the gym, I'm at yoga, I'm on a jog, and I'm like, I'm about to like quit, or I'm like tired or something. And this is just like level 1, level 2. And I'm like, David Goggins would never quit.
It's motivated you?
It motivated me. Yeah. Cause I was like, this guy, and you know what it is too? It's like, it's so different. It's so different to look at anything as a challenge rather than, oh, this is so hard to do. Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not comfortable, or this or that. It's like to step up to a challenge is admirable. It's like, it's strong. you feel good. If you use the word challenge, it should push you a little farther than you going, I don't want to do that. It's too hard. Every time you think about something being too hard, now I'm displacing it with it's a challenge. It's a challenge, which if you beat a challenge, it feels good. Sitting around and stating the obvious that you don't want to get out of your comfort zone, I get it. But David Goggins, he kills the comfort zone. I mean, it's an amazing book. And the story in the beginning and everything like that, how he was brought up and what he went through. You hear these stories all the time about, a bad upbringing. There's a part in this book, I don't even know if I want to share this, but I was like, damn. He said when he was, I think he was like 10 years old, 10 or 11 years old. I could be wrong on this, but there's a chapter. I don't even know if I want to talk about it. It's deep. He was on a bus, a school bus, and there was I believe it was like a toddler kid. Toddler means like 3 to 4 years old. And the kid ran out in front of the bus. Oh, shit. And got ran over. And he said the blood spatted up to his window when he was like 10 years old. And he said he's graphic in the book. He's like, you saw pieces of brain on the ground in the school. He said the woman, the mom, because the kid ran out in front of the bus. The mom was screaming and literally pulling her hair out of her head. He's like, she pulled hair out of her head, screaming. He's like, now, it's giving me chills just saying it. When you hear that story, you're like, damn. Prior to that story, I shouldn't be giving this all away. Prior to that story, when he was a kid, he was abused by his father. His dad was a bad alcoholic. The list goes on. Him and his mom got away. He's 8 years old. His mom, like a year or 2 years later, gets a new boyfriend. He's like, the boyfriend was cool. Used to like play basketball with him. They like lived in separate houses. And the mom's going to marry him. Like a year and a half later, they're going to move in together. And he was close to this guy. Like he was close to him, like really close to him, I think in his teen years. I'm getting chills now again. About a week before the guy's supposed to marry his mom, the guy gets shot in his garage.
What happened?
It was a murder.
Oh.
It was they're not sure. He's like, I'm not sure what happened, but he goes, I'm telling you because he said like he had all these bad things happen when he was young, right? Like his dad abused him when he was young. His dad beat his mom. Then they get away. Then he sees that kid get ran over. Then I don't know the sequence of this. Then like I said, it would have been his stepdad who he liked, right? A lot of people don't like their stepdads or who their mom's going to marry. He was close to the guy, and the guy gets shot, and they don't know the story. The murder was on TV, like the scene. But like all this stuff, and you look at like, I don't like to compete for who has it worse because we all had a problem. My dad was a bad alcoholic. I've seen some stuff when I was young. But you never want to say like, oh, I had it worse or I had this. There's just so many human beings that you're like, you don't know these people's story, man. You think you know people, and this is why you read a book like this, and he's like, he says it later on. And the audiobook's excellent. Excellent audiobook. He's like, you can't judge me. So like someone will say like, oh, you ran this 100-mile race or you made the Navy SEALs because you're athletic, because you're naturally good at things. And he's like, you don't know me. You don't know what I'm made of. You don't know what made me. And when you read the book, you get it because you're like, these stories, if they're made up, man, I would have someone making something like some of this stuff up is pretty crazy. And for him to come out of all this and be a Navy SEAL and now do motivating stuff like the book and whatnot, it's amazing. So when you read this book, like I said, it's like a biography, but those stories I just told you, I didn't even tell them really the way they should be told, the way the book does, but it grabs you where you're like, you complain about some things in your life or you've had some tough things and you read this book and you're like, damn, David Goggins went through it. And then when he became adult, he just constantly challenged himself. He didn't make excuses. And you know what he says? He said, the best thing that ever happened to me is that I didn't get help, that no one felt sorry for me, that I had to be accountable for myself. And I thought that was really interesting, because there's a part at the end of the book where he thinks he's dying. And he can't figure it out because he goes to the doctor, and the doctors are like, you seem fine. And he's exhausted. He's dizzy. He's passing out. He has no appetite. He can't figure it out, but he's like, he literally feels like he's dying. And he said he's just laying down like almost like in a deathbed type thing at like 38 years old. And he starts going through all the achievements because he was a Navy SEAL. I think he was in combat. There's all these different things that he did, the 100-mile races, and he finally appreciates it all. And he said he felt good about himself. Like before, he was just challenge. And then it comes to him, this is random as hell, that someone, when he was in Navy SEAL school, told him that he should be stretching more often. And he got down on the ground and just started stretching. And he was so tight and tense from all the work he had done over the years and all the pushing himself, that's what it was. His body was exhausted and tense. And he started to feel better. But anyway, I'm going too far on this book, but I don't want to give away. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Definitely get this book or the audio book. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks, and this one will probably be like a top 10 where like you're like, just right now when I told you that story, Aleph, you're like, what? It gets you, it grabs you. And then Goggins' style of the way he speaks and he swears, he's being himself. He's got some slang in there that you wouldn't know. Fantastic book. If this book doesn't, you're not gonna become, because I thought of it like, I don't want to be a Navy SEAL. It's not where I'm at. Or I'm not like, I respect the hell out of the military. My dad was a Marine, all the best, all that. But I didn't get it. It's so much deeper than him being a Navy SEAL. So much deeper than that. All right, so looking at the rest of my Audible here really quick. This is another book that I've talked about many times. Hands-on Healing by William Bankston. I'm not sure if this is only an audiobook, but this book was mind-blowing for me. This is more of a lecture like a professor would give. And he basically talks about curing cancer thousands of times with energy from your hands and the intention of helping people. I can't give it just, it's science-based, it's research-based. So this isn't woo-woo at all. This guy's an actual professor that's performed thousands of experiments on mice that have cancer, and every single mouse that had cancer, they've cured, except for like 3. Mm-hmm. And no one will let them use this. The doctors won't let them use it because there's no medication. I don't want to go on and on about it. He has a technique to use. Basically put your hands on the spot that the person's bothered by, have good intentions, and there's something called cycling. And it's a practice he uses. Incredible stories of curing cancer. And this guy's a PhD scientist, and he met a psychic that gave him this information, and it's worked, and it's proven to work. So if you ever thought about, you had a family member or a friend that died of cancer, specifically cancer, this seems to work the best on. Hands-on Healing by William Bankston. Highly recommend it. Be skeptical too. Like don't be like, and he says that. Be skeptical. Don't, try it. Skeptical is okay about things like the law of attraction. Think about it this way. When someone gives you, when I first moved to Thailand, everything's spicy food. I mean, I like food, but I don't like my food too spicy. But now I've lived here 10 years later, I like spicy food. I can eat spice. Like, and people be like, "Oh, you sure?" Yeah, I can. Adaptation, but like part of it is you're skeptical too. Like you're like, is this gonna hurt me? I don't eat food like this. It's too strong. You're not used to it. But if you try it, you might like it. It goes both ways, by the way. I've shown Thai people food before, and they're like, "No, I don't want any of that. It looks, I don't. Ew. Do you want to try it? Is it gonna hurt you? Not really." But this Hands-On Healing by William Bankston none of these are in 2020. I think the Hands-On Healing, it might just be on Audible, but I'm not sure. But look up William Bankston for sure. Incredible stuff on that. I'm just going through it really quick here. The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene was a good book. Very long book. Some of it overlaps with his other work, The Laws of Human Nature, Robert Greene. But if you're into psychology and things like that, this is a great read, because what Robert Greene does is he doesn't talk about it in a scientific or boring way. He takes a story a story from history or a person from history to explain his point on human nature. The Truth of Love. Many libraries offer audiobooks, ebooks now. Good investment to get a library card if you don't have one. Okay. We don't really have libraries here, huh? Where we're at.
There is in Phuket City.
Is it a good library?
Not really. I've been there like so many times when I was a kid, but it's mostly old books, and none of them in English.
Yeah, I'm just talking about where I'm at. But in California, I used to love the library. I used to like the atmosphere of the library because it was quiet and it was clean. It was nice. Yeah, where we're at. But I would add the audiobooks. Audible's not that expensive. It's $15 a month, and that includes one free one, I believe. It's pretty worth it if you ask me, because a book's about $15. What I like about Audible is it allows you to clip notes, so you can bookmark things, and it'll keep your notes for you, which I think is really cool. The other thing about audiobooks, YouTube, there's a lot of people like Laws for Human Nature. Sometimes if you type these in, someone uploaded them. The other thing, thanks for bringing that up, The Truth of Love. That's helpful. Or Clutch, as you go by, right? The other thing you can do is you can put in YouTube, like Breathe by James Nestor. He's interviewed 1,000 times on YouTube, so he talks about the book. If you like interviews, David Goggins has a load of interviews too. But I would say these particular ones I'm telling you about, I've seen these guys interviewed. And the interviews are good, but the books are better. I can't speak for every part of the world. No worries. Like I said, in Cali, we had great libraries. I'm just curious with COVID if that's one of those places they're keeping people out of too. But is Chile, you're in Chile, right? Do they have nice libraries there that they allow that? All right, let's get back to some other books here. Very interesting book. I haven't even reviewed this one in 2020. This was a couple years back. But if you want a really interesting book, Sex at Dawn. That got Aleph attention right away. By Christopher. This is highly researched base. Christopher Ryan. He's also on Joe Rogan. He gets interviewed. It's about intimacy, and he talks about it with bonobos and monkeys. He talks about it with primates, not just human beings. And he talks about the history of time in different cultures and how they've regarded sex. And so it's not what you think. in that sense. Highly research based, interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. I'll leave it at that. Alice, like, tell me more about this one.
No, it just reminds me of the project that you gave us for a class. Like the video project that you grouped me with Danny and June on that time, and the topic that the clip that we did is about the podcasting. So we talk about like love like that, and one of the fact that I just remember maybe by this book is like the reason why human that be together of love is because of the lust that we create in our brain to just only for make a baby, like to born like a generation like that. That's why we have
Lust
love.
is created from wanting to have a baby.
Yeah, like that.
Well, they say the reason you're attracted to certain things in your mate
Yeah,
is because they look healthy.
like the reason why.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's you're attracted to healthy people because you want to have a baby with them. But maybe attractions changed over time. But they say that, you know, that's why if someone has. Did you want to say something, Dan? Go ahead. That's why I was gonna say, like, if you see someone with like acne, and I know, and I don't mean this because like some people get acne, right? I had acne at 19. People aren't going to be attracted to you as much because it doesn't look healthy, right? It's not just that it's ugly, right? It's because it doesn't look. It's like, are you okay? Is everything all right? You know what I mean? So that's a big one. So the next book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Great self-improvement book. It came out a few years ago. He just has a great writing style. I've talked about this book before. I've recommended it to people. I think he has a similar style to Robert Greene, but a little bit younger. What I mean by that younger, he uses a little different slang. But he basically takes stories of history to get his points across. But very good book if you're looking for. And I've seen this book living in Thailand. A lot of people on the beaches are reading it, so it's a very popular book out here. Truth of Love says, I still have my Santa Monica library card and my Ottawa library card. A lot of services when you sign up, they don't check if your status is up to date. Overdrive, Hoopla. Oh, okay. So you having those library cards, you can still access audiobooks from them from that far away. Santa Monica's a nice place. All right, let me get back to this. Let me see if there's a couple other. Perennial Seller is a great book by Ryan Holiday. If you're thinking of starting a business or starting a brand, starting a rock band, whatever, brand or band, Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. Excellent book. Story-based, example-based. So it's not like a business book. I've recommended it to a few friends that are into business and marketing, and they loved it. Really good book. Really, really good book. I'm just going to go through these really quick. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller also is a good one. Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson. I've talked about this book before. Excellent book if you're looking into sleep. I know it seems boring to talk about breathing and sleeping, but they're very important to your life. And just looking at Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson, you'll get some tips where you're like, oh, shit, okay, that might help me with my sleep. And you think you're sleeping well, but you don't always sleep well. The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida. Great book, classic book, not from 2020, but a long time ago. If you're coming out of a breakup and kind of finding yourself. The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida. Great book. One of the great parts of the first chapter in that book that I thought was really interesting is he talks about men needing to not just seek easy opportunities, but actually seek out what they really want to do. Another interesting thing in the book that he tells people is to live life as if your father's dead, which sounds very dramatic and something I don't want to think about. But his point is for you to become an adult and an independent individual that's not dependent on other people. But this is a classic book. It's pretty dramatic, the tone in the audiobook. He's got this, it's almost like a preacher type thing going, but good book. The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Outstanding book on habits. Very well done, research-based, example-based. Anyone that I've heard of that have listened to this book or read it have liked it. It's one of those books I think I'm going to definitely have to read again. I've gone over it 2 times before. Good morning, everyone. What's up, Marco? Man's Search for Meaning is a classic. It's a short read. It gives you it's a good one maybe to consider out of a breakup, but it's basically the core of the story is to find meaning in any struggle or crisis. And he's finding meaning. He gives you his story of being in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, which is a long, long time ago now, and how he found meaning to move forward and move on. And he has something called logos therapy, which is basically finding meaning in everything. And we could call this reframing things also. Another book that I really, really like, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Win Big. This is a great book by Scott Adams. I'd highly recommend this book. Not a 2020 book, but basically Scott Adams developed the comic strip Dilbert. Do you know that one, Danny? Sorry? A comic strip called Dilbert, which is like I think it was a joke for a lot of companies and stuff. Anyways, I wasn't deep into it. It's a very famous comic strip that was in newspapers and whatnot. But what's interesting about his story is he talks about how he failed a lot of times. And then by having systems rather than just goals, he was able to win big. One of his systems is affirmations, is telling yourself, saying that I, Scott Adams, will be the top comic strip writer in the world. And doing it every day like 10 times. And he's like, it works. It worked for him every time. And he's like, I don't think that's magic. But it's more like it gets your subconscious working to get focused on what you really want. So Mac McCarthy made $10 million. Mac McCarthy made $10 million. So he's saying, like, you do that every day. It's not like hocus pocus, you're going to get it tomorrow, like blow your candles out on the birthday cake. But he's like, I'm not sure why it works, but it works.
It's like to convince your mind.
Good question, Aleph. He says that he learned about it from a lady that's Mensa. Mensa means you're a genius. It's a test people take. And he said he thought it was bullshit, but he just kept trying and it kept working. So he said he'll write down what he wants 15 times, but you have to do it like I Mac McCarthy, will earn $10 million this year. Or Mac McCarthy, wrote the book such as if something's already done. And then he says you say it 10 or 15 times, you write it down, or he goes, you can just say it to yourself in the car every day. I think it's not just convincing, which is a good word, by the way. That could be convincing. I think it's making you focus on making that true. And so your subconscious mind, it's just like, I've said this before. If you're going to, let's say you're interested in buying a new car and you want to buy a Mercedes-Benz 500 SL. I don't even know if they have 500 SLs anymore. That's how old I am. That's an old 80s car that was popular. Anyhow, you'll start seeing that car everywhere. And you don't know why. It's because this is what's really interesting about your mind. You walk into a room, you actually see a lot more than you see. Do you understand what I mean? Like your mind, your eyes see like a lot of stuff. What you pick out as important is based on your beliefs and your values. So let's say we went to a party and there's, I don't know, 50 people there. And we walk into the party and I've been making an affirmation that I, Mac McCarthy, want to make $10 million. I'm probably going to seek out the people that have money or appear to have money, or I'm going to have longer conversations with people that maybe are in business rather than someone that wants to talk about riding bicycles in the park, because that's what I'm focused on. Does that make sense? So by making those affirmations every day, you're going to increase your focus to go to that place. So that's that. And he says that. He goes, look, I don't know what it is or if it's magic. It's worked for me again and again and again. But the book's deeper than that. But it's interesting. I've tried it before. And I've had trouble being consistent with it, because he said you got to do it every day. And it could be you either write it down or you say it to yourself. But by the way, he had this one thing, I don't know, some kind of disease or something, where he lost his voice, which would be really tough for me. He lost his voice, and the doctors were like, there's nothing we can do. Sorry, like, you're not going to get your voice back. This is something that people get sometimes. It was either and he had another problem where he lost feeling in his hand too. So like from drawing so much. And the doctor said the same thing. Oh, it's a nerve thing. You'll never get this back. He started his affirmations. The voice thing, it took him 3 years, but he found a cure. What he said was, by saying it every day, he stayed focused on finding a cure and not listening to the doctor, because the doctor could be wrong, right? So he found a cure on that. So it was a really interesting book. He's a huge millionaire now. He's got a YouTube channel now. He's kind of an interesting character. One of the other things I liked about him is he got into hypnotherapy, which is something that I'm interested in, that I actually do with clients sometimes. And he took a hypnotist class, and he said it really helped him out on some things in life. Yes, Dilbert is the corporate America's Garfield. I agree. Yeah, something like that. I was never into it, but I certainly know who he is. And he's just got a great story that isn't one of those ones where he worked really hard to get where he was. So that's a book I highly recommend. What else do we have here? Oh, this is a good one for people. Mating in Captivity. And I have to listen to this one again. The only thing is, on the audiobook, the lady has a really thick accent. The lady has a very thick accent, and that's the thing about audiobooks. If you don't like the accent or the voice, it's hard to listen to it sometimes. Saying that, though, this is an interesting book she's a psychiatrist in New York for 30 years or something like that. And she talks about, really great title, by the way, Mating in Captivity. You know what captivity is? No. Captivity is like when you keep an animal in the zoo. Mm-hmm. Like you keep a tiger in a cage. Mm-hmm. That's captivity. You're not letting them have freedom. And so I think what she's referencing is mating in captivity is like marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend, living together. And she talks about examples of couples that were her clients. And a lot of it is couples that got sick of each other, which if you've been in a long-term relationship, sometimes like it's not that you had a big problem, like they cheated or alcohol or drugs or stealing or abuse or anything like that. It's like sometimes people are just like, I'm just tired of you. Like, I'm just like, we're done. I'm tired of your way. I'm tired that you snore. I'm tired that you talk about your job. I don't know. So one of the biggest things she discusses in this, wait for it, give each other space. Take vacations from your partner. And it's funny because I just had a client that came back to me that has a girlfriend now that originally came to me because of a friend zone situation. And basically, he's been in a year relationship, and he's like, I just want to break. I want to break up. He just needs to take a trip and go do things on his own. They hang out too much. Anyone, by the way, if you hang out with a friend 24/7, you'll get sick of them. You know what I mean? Like I had college roommates multiple times. Those are probably when I say best friends, because when you live together, it's different. You're closer. You're like family. And so like we were close, but there would be moments where you just want to smack the hell out of one of them, you know, like because you see each other so often, right? You get sick of each other. But in relationships, so she breaks that down pretty nice in a different way. So I would definitely check out that book. Is this useful or helpful for you guys out there, the 8 on deck that I've done this for so far? Does anyone have any questions or books that you think that I'm missing? I'm not going to tell you every great book. I just thought I would touch on some that I think are really good. And the reason... Deep Work by Cal Newport is probably one of the best books if you're starting a new job, new career, and you want to be the best at your job eventually. Deep Work by Cal Newport. Excellent book, followed by Mastery by Robert Greene, which I've talked about before. So I actually just got an email recently, and this guy sent in $25 to send his story in. I said, but he wrote like, hey, I really like your YouTube channel. You changed my life with 2 book recommendations on one of your live streams. Says a couple other things and then left it alone. So if you come to my site, you're supposed to write your story out. So I contacted him back. I said, hey, look, thank you for the kind words and the compliments, but you never wrote your story. Did you want me to read your story on YouTube? He goes, no, I just wanted to give you $25 and say thanks for those recommendations and thanks for your channel. It's really helped me. And so he said, I read 2 books and I realized I want to be a machinist. I forgot the term of it, some specialized machinist. And those 2 books changed my life going into my new career. And so I said, was it Deep Work with Cal Newport and Mastery with Robert Greene? He goes, those are the 2 books. So those are 2 books that they go at length. If you want to be really good at your purpose or really good at your career, those are the 2 books that dissect that subject. I think they're excellent, excellent reads. I could go on and recommend more books and more books, but at some point I got to stop, right? I would say, I'm just going through them really quick. Oh yeah, the list just goes on. Yeah, maybe I have to do a part 2. I'll close it out with this book, which was really good. The Tactical Guide to Women. Do you know this one, Danny? Did you do notes for this?
Yeah.
Did you think it was good?
I guess it was good.
You just got the notes from it.
Yeah.
The Tactical Guide to Women. I think he actually has the Tactical Guide to Men too, but I believe he was a psychiatrist or a counselor of some sort. Great book, highly detailed, different outlook than The Rational Male, which I've recommended umpteen times. Different outlook than some of the other ones, but Tactical Guide to Women, very good book. Does anyone have any questions about these books or any other suggestions about other books? I got 9 people on deck. Crickets.
เอาไปหน้าแรก
Attached by Amir Levine. Okay, thanks, bud. I haven't read that book or followed it. I'll make a note of that. Is that in regards to being attached to a partner or being attached to a loved one? Is this the attachment theory? Attachment styles, take it with a grain of salt. Spoilers, their solution is dating someone who is secure. Oh, man. Just get to the end, right? Oh, man, we got to talk. That's funny. Wait for it. It's so funny because a lot of information or advice, like I've said this before, Clutch, it's like when you see a doctor interviewed. I don't know how many times I've seen a doctor or someone that's like into health, and they're going on and they're like, hey, Dr. Rajiv, what do you suggest for people with their diet when they want to make a change? And the doctor will be like, lots of fruits and vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, omega-3s, salmon. And it's just like, didn't have to be a fucking doctor to know that. I mean, isn't that information everyone knows? I mean, if he had like, eat this, this, and this every day, okay, like, and you gave me like recipes for specialized salads and stuff, but like, I swear, I've seen this. I used to get Maxim magazine as a kid, and they had a health section, and every week it would be like top 10 energy foods, top 10 good foods, and it would be like almonds, broccoli. I mean, it's the same stuff. It would never be like, oh, shocking, they recommended zucchini, another vegetable. It's so funny that you're like, spoiler, the solution is dating someone who is secure. Yeah, I got it, dude. I get it. That's so funny. So it's funny you mentioned that, Clutch, because I do have a book here. The Love, the Psychology of Attraction. These are really good books. It's almost like encyclopedias of psychology. How should I put it? Theories. And they have they have a big chapter on attachment theories and stuff on there. And I'll be honest, I've read through it a couple times, and I found attachment theories to be a little bit limited and label-based, but I'm not against them. The only problem I have is that I have a lot of people that come to me and they'll go, oh, I'm attachment such and such, and then they identify with something that's negative, and it almost becomes an excuse, as if that's just how I am, Mac. Or they label their partner that, and it might be true. I found when I was reading the attachment theories, and I will read the book because I respect your opinion, or I'll get it on Audible, but it only has 4 attachment theories. So I'm like, aren't humans a little bit deeper than 4 boxes you can put them in? Because I found when I was reading it, I felt like, oh, this can apply to me in multiple levels. What I tell people is attachment is good for understanding people, but not manipulating situations. Okay, I get what you mean by that. I just, sometimes people go, well, I'm attachment style such and such. Okay, so what I ask, Clutch, is I'll be like, what does that mean to you? Because that's the most important thing. I could sit there and call you an attachment style, but if you might not identify with it. So I'll ask the people what they think it means to them. And then what do you want to do with that? Do you want to continue being that way? And then let's unpack why you might be that way. And that's why having them share their story will give me more details and puzzle pieces of why they believe themselves. But I don't like to say, oh, you're attachment theory XYZ. Psychopath free. by Jackson Mackenzie is a book that changed my life. Highly recommended to those who grew up in a toxic household. Well, you got me at the title, Psychopath Free. I'd like to stay free of psychopaths. Isn't it funny that, have you ever saw a psychopath before? In public?
No.
You probably have, Danny. You're pretty observant. You know what they look like, right? It's like this.
But I think I do have seen people who are close to being a psychopath.
I'm making a joke, but haven't you ran into people in the public, whether it was Thailand or somewhere else, and someone's like this?
Yeah.
And you're just like, you look at them and you're like, stop looking at me. Their eyes are like unfocused, strong. You've seen people like this before, and you're just like, does anyone else see this guy here? He looks fucking dangerous. And then when you see psychopaths like do you know who Charles Manson is?
No.
Go look him up. Like when you see his eyes and you see how he looks, you're like, this guy's crazy. Some of the people that you see that are like murderers, they have those eyes, right? I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong on that, but I mean, the man, there's some people though, you meet them and you're like, oh yeah, that you don't even want to look their way. And they have the psycho stare. I remember when my nephew was young, he was like 5 years old, and we lived in the same house. I used to do that to him sometimes. I'd go, and he'd go, stop it, stop, because it's scary. Right? If someone stares at you, it's not like if I stare at you like that's a little bit more, but this one, just no emotion. And you see people like that in public. Not often, but every once in a while you're like, oh, this person's messed up, man. Like, there's one guy in the NBA that has eyes like that. He's been in multiple fights, and he broke some guy's jaw on his team. Don't know if he's a psychopath, but he does have the eyes. That's people out there, oh, you can't tell by the eyes. I don't know. Okay, Bobby Portis, you got it, Skinner. You know exactly who I'm talking about. This basketball player, you guys got to look him up, man. He looks scary.
Who?
His name's Bobby Portis. You can look it up on YouTube. And he just has he goes around the court and he's aggressive, and the dude's like 6'10". He's a ball player. You know what I mean though, Skinner, right? And it's like he got drafted. I was like, dude, this guy's got crazy eyes. Right? And that probably wouldn't be politically correct to say now, right? Like people would be like, oh, you can't say it. But he has been in multiple fights, and he did take out his teammate's jaw, I believe. Like they didn't just get in a fight. Like he hurt him bad. That's funny, Skinner, that you got that. I'm glad you're still on deck. What I tell people is attachment is good for, okay, I was engaged to one. Damn. So do you think like psychopath free, I'll make a note of those too. That's interesting. So you were engaged to a psychopath. That's interesting. We got to talk about that on a live stream. I got to set that up with you. That would be an interesting thing to talk about, Clutch. Laugh out loud, crazy eyes. See white above and below the pupil. I don't know what that HIMYM, I don't know if that's abbreviation for. But you know what I mean, though. You've met people like that, and you're just like, whoa, this is your friend? Like, I've had it a couple times where I've been out at a restaurant, and you look over, and the person's looking at you, you're like, hey, man. They say there's 2 reasons people stare at you like that. They stare at you that strong. They either want to fight you or they want to do you. How I Met Your Mother. That's a channel?
Series?
It's a show.
Is it?
Yeah. It's
a
rom-com.
It's a sitcom?
Yeah.
Danny knew that one right away.
Yeah.
What's rom-com mean? I don't know what that. Romantic comedy?
Yeah.
I don't even know that term, rom-com. Okay. How I Met Your Mother.
It's pretty funny.
It's a good one?
Yeah.
Man, I just saw a really good movie yesterday. I'll have to show it to you, Danny. Hillbilly Elegy? Elegy? Why am I getting that wrong? Hillbilly Elegy. Excellent movie. Best movie I've seen all year. Real story. That's funny. I'm glad you chimed in on that, Skinner, on that Bobby Portis. You're the only one that would get that. Hillbilly Elegy. Elegy. Great movie. Sorry to get off topic here. It was on Netflix. All right, folks. Anyone else have a book they want to recommend or not? Donations are always welcome. If not, it's okay. You're on deck. How's Chili treating you, Mr. Clutch? How I Met Your Mother. What a thing to say. Who's in that, Dan?
I don't know much about like those actors, but I think I know one of them, but I forgot.
You don't
the
know
name.
the name? Okay, don't worry about
Yeah.
it, bro. Psychopath free. I like that. I think I'll start with psychopath free. I've never been with a psychopath, Clutch, but I believe you. Jeez. I get, like, it's like, Clutch, if you go, someone goes, oh, I'm with a narcissist, you go, I've been with a psychopath. Me too. I usually wake up at 6 a.m. myself. That's funny. I've never been with a psychopath. You'd never know.
So how was that?
What?
With psychopaths.
Yeah, like I said, we're gonna have to that you know of. Well, if I'm assuming that if you're with a psychopath, they're gonna lack feelings, they're gonna lack emotions, they're gonna be highly selfish, and they're gonna do some shit where you're gonna go, you're a psychopath. And I've never been with one because I've never been like, this person's a psychopath. I've never had someone that like completely lacked all emotion. Now I might have rubbed elbows with someone or maybe worked with someone like that I didn't know well, but not a girlfriend, let alone a fiance. That's a story to tell right there. That's a story to tell. Covert, the true psychopaths know how to hide it. Look up Covert's narcissism. Ross Rosenberg is a good search for that. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna definitely, if you're up for it, let's talk about that on a live stream. Because it's not something that comes up for sure. And the other book was. Bobby Portis. I'm going to show you guys who Bobby Portis is after, and you guys will see. All right. All right, folks, we did an hour and 13 minutes. I feel good about it. Hope you do too. I'll be back on deck tomorrow. If you don't see me before then, Happy New Year. Clutch, I'll be in contact. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your input. I'm happy that you detached from the psychopath. That's crazy, man. At least you got a story to tell. Right? That's all you can do when you have something crazy or a crazy thing happen to you. You got a story to tell. I want to hear this story. I mean, you know what I mean? When something bad happens to you, do you like to tell the story, Aleph?
Today?
No, not right now. I'm just saying in your life. You're like, yeah, you know what happened to me?
Yeah, it depends on what things
Some things you don't want to share.
Yeah, like something I think I can handle by myself, so I don't talk to anyone.
You haven't had a psychopath. You've had a little narcissist before, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but that's another one, like the narcissism thing. When someone breaks up, if you broke up with a narcissist, if you broke up with a psychopath, you should be going, thank you for being free. You shouldn't be going around telling everyone they did this to me, they did that to me. You have a right to do that for a little while because you're hurt and you're upset. And then down the road, if one of your friends is with a psychopath or a narcissist, you go, hey man, you want to talk about it? I've been there before. But people that spend like 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year going around saying, I was, this person did this and did that to me. You got to tell yourself, you got to reframe that to, oh, I'm so happy I got out of that thing. Because sometimes it takes you breaking up to realize what it was, right, Clutch? Like sometimes you don't connect the dots till afterwards and you go, oh my goodness, wow. You got to get out of the fog to see the blue sky. And then when you get there, you don't want to go back to it and go, I was in the fog the whole time. You're going to go, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not doing that again. You know what I mean? You got to know you're not going to be with a psychopath again. It's such a strong word, psycho. It's one thing to say psycho, but you throw in psychopath. It's strong. It's strong. All right, folks. Thank you kindly. It's curtains. Take it easy.